right now, there are just thousands of brilliant, fiercely dedicated people out there working 90-hour
Oh,
weeks.
at least 90 hours. Yeah.
Right, and they're burning through their life savings, sacrificing their personal relationships, all to build products that honestly absolutely no one wants.
It's brutal. It really is.
It's like they're on a treadmill. I mean, they're sweating, their heart rate is through the roof, legs are burning. They are putting in a massive amount of physical and emotional effort.
Right. But they aren't going anywhere.
Exactly. If they step off, they're in the exact same spot in the room as when they started. They've had incredible movement, sure, but zero actual momentum.
It's a really brutal reality check, but honestly, it's the perfect visual for the core dilemma we're tackling today. Because, in the business world, especially when you're trying to build something from absolutely nothing, that treadmill is usually running at its maximum speed.
Just sprinting in place.
Sprinting in place, burning through venture cash, burning through their own energy, and genuinely wondering why they haven't reached the finish line yet.
Okay, let's unpack this because our mission for this deep dive is to, well, get you off that treadmill. We're going to demystify the incredibly treacherous journey of building a startup from scratch, taking it all the way to massive scale and, making sure you're actually covering ground.
Yeah, we are diving into a really extensive masterclass document today. It's titled EP13 Startup Lifecycle.
Right, which is essentially a blueprint. It details ecosystem strategies, the architecture of scale, and some really profound execution frameworks developed by an organization called Startuplanes and its founder, Dr. Shashir Gupta.
And what makes this specific source material so compelling, I think, is that it completely strips away all those romanticized Hollywood ideas of what it means to be an entrepreneur.
No dramatic boardroom speeches here.
Exactly. We aren't talking about overnight billionaires. We're getting right down to the absolute physical, mathematical, and strategic laws of business execution.
And those laws don't care about who you are.
They don't. Whether you're a 20-year-old coding in your dorm room or, a 50-year-old leaving a massive corporate career to start something new, these principles apply universally.
And the framework starts by making a really hard distinction right out of the gate, which I think is just crucial for you to hear. It argues that we need to stop using the words traditional business and startup interchangeably.
Yeah, they aren't just different flavors of commerce. They are fundamentally different beasts.
Completely different species, right?
Completely. And understanding this difference is, honestly, the ultimate prerequisite for everything we're going to discuss today. I mean, think about starting a traditional business, say, opening a local bakery or a specialized accounting firm.
You're entering a known market.
Right. The business life cycle in that scenario is about introduction, growth, maturity, and eventually steady-state cash flow. People buy bread. You know what flour and yeast cost. The variables are mostly known.
So your job as a traditional business owner is just to operate and optimize an established trade model. You're executing a known playbook.
Precisely. But a startup operates in a landscape of extreme, almost paralyzing uncertainty.
Because it's not just, we are a new company.
No, the entire defining characteristic of a startup is the search for an unproven scalable model. You aren't just managing cash flow, you're conducting iterative customer discovery.
You're trying to create an entirely new market behavior.
Or introduce a disruptive product with hyper-growth targets. So a traditional business is built for steady, predictable survival. Whereas a startup is this evolutionary sequence designed to find a repeatable business model that can eventually scale exponentially.
Which means the startup lifecycle isn't just a timeline on a calendar, it's a biological evolution. And that brings us to the central metaphor of this entire masterclass. It introduces this fascinating parallel between the biological rhythm of a venture and the human life cycle itself.
This is where Dr. Gupta's synthesis really shines, honestly. The argument here is that winning founders respect the biological rhythm of their venture. They understand that a startup goes through distinct developmental stages, exactly like a human being.
Right. Life begins at conception in infancy.
Right. And in the startup world, that's the idea phase.
Conception and infancy. So, think about a newborn baby. It represents pure, boundless potential, but it has zero self-sustainability.
None. It is entirely dependent on its parents for its survival.
And in a startup, your idea in this phase exists only in your mind, or maybe scribbled on a whiteboard. There's no revenue. There's no product.
There's no market presence at all. That venture relies 100% on the founder's personal savings, their sweat equity, or maybe some early angel capital just to keep breathing. It's totally vulnerable.
Completely fragile. And the analogy holds up beautifully because just like you wouldn't expect a newborn baby to suddenly go get a corporate job and start paying a mortgage.
That would be absurd.
Exactly. You cannot expect a startup in the infancy stage to function like a mature enterprise.
Right. Bypassing developmental stages causes developmental collapse. If you force adult responsibilities onto a 6-month-old child, they break. And yet, founders do this every single day.
They force massive expansion, right? Complex organizational chart.
Heavy infrastructure. All onto a startup that is still essentially in its infancy. And the result is always the same. The venture collapses under its own premature weight.
I have to pause here, though, and ask the question that I think a lot of people listening are probably wondering right now. We live in a culture that completely romanticizes the grind of being an entrepreneur.
Oh, absolutely. The hustle culture.
You see the social media posts, the flashy funding announcements. But if the reality is this difficult, this fragile, and you're constantly hovering on the verge of developmental collapse, why do it?
Why take the risk?
Yeah, why subject yourself to that level of stress when you could just take a traditional job?
It's a completely valid question, and the masterclass addresses this by looking at the fundamental math of human leverage. There's this quote from Dr. Gupta that frames this entire endeavor perfectly.
What does he say?
He says, "A job feeds you for a month, but binds your leverage to a desk. A business starves you for a season, but builds an automated engine that feeds your generations forever."
Starves you for a season. Man, that is an incredibly sobering way to put it.
It is, but the payoff is that automated engine. The framework differentiates between 3 categories: an employee, a professional, and an entrepreneur.
Okay, so an employee trades their time for money under rigid external structures.
Right. And a professional, like a lawyer or a freelance designer, they sell specialized cognitive output based on their reputation, but they're still ultimately trading their time.
But an entrepreneur?
An entrepreneur's goal is to create systems that work while they sleep. Dr. Gupta tells founders to stop selling the seed and start planting the orchard.
I absolutely love that distinction. Selling the seed gets you a quick, guaranteed meal today, but planting the orchard feeds you for a lifetime.
Exactly.
But to build that orchard, to bring it back to the execution process, you can't just run around throwing seeds everywhere and hoping for the best. You need to know if the soil is actually good.
You have to test the soil.
You need to know if the climate will even support an orchard. And that leads us perfectly into the first major phase of the startup life cycle, validation.
Phase 1. Without question, the most critical and, tragically, the most frequently skipped phase of the entire entrepreneurial journey.
So if the idea phase was infancy, this masterclass compares the validation phase to toddlerhood. And if you've ever been around a toddler, you know it's all about testing boundaries.
It is pure chaos.
It's chaotic. They fall down, they get back up, they touch the hot stove, and they learn from failure.
That's the perfect description of validation. In toddlerhood, a child learns to walk by discovering what hurts and what works through trial and error. In the startup validation phase, you are doing the exact same thing.
Testing your assumptions.
Right. You are testing whether your core assumptions about your customer, the problem they have, and your proposed solution are empirically real.
Empirically real. Meaning you aren't just sitting in a room guessing that people want this thing you've dreamed up. You actually have undeniable proof.
Yes. Before you build heavy infrastructure, before you hire an expensive engineering team, before you sign a 5-year commercial lease for an office, the primary objective of toddlerhood is to eliminate uncertainty through rigorous, sometimes painful, customer discovery.
The source material is incredibly aggressive about the danger of skipping this stage. It states that the primary reason startups fail, like the absolute #1 cause of death, is skipping validation in order to chase vanity metrics.
It's a huge trap.
Founders spend massive amounts of capital building a fully featured, beautiful product that nobody actually wants to use.
There's a fantastic, almost haunting line from Dr. Gupta in this section. He says, "Validation is the graveyard of assumptions. Never build a monument to an unverified idea."
A monument to an unverified idea. Think about how many millions of dollars have been spent building software monuments or physical retail monuments only to launch them and realize the market simply doesn't care.
The whole "if you build it, they will come" fallacy.
Exactly. It happens every single day, and it's heartbreaking because it's totally avoidable. The masterclass provides this massive, detailed checklist for this phase specifically to prevent that monument building.
Yeah, it talks about ideation and problem discovery. It tells founders to conduct unstructured interviews with potential users. And the key word there is unstructured.
So you aren't pitching them.
No, you aren't pitching them your brilliant idea. You're just asking them about their pain points.
Yeah.
You also have to evaluate the total addressable market, or the TAM, to ensure the problem you're solving actually has high enough growth potential to justify all this effort.
Okay, let's make this concrete, because the masterclass gives us these brilliant case studies of modern startups, and a few of them perfectly illustrate just how scrappy and humble you have to be during this validation phase. Let's look at
Oh,
Dropbox.
Dropbox is a classic textbook example of validation.
Right. So before Dropbox wrote a single line of production code for their file syncing software, which, by the way, is incredibly complex to build from an engineering standpoint, they needed to validate market demand.
If they built the monument first, it would have cost them a fortune.
Instead, the founder, Drew Houston, validated the demand with a simple 3-minute explainer video. He just mocked up what the product would do if it actually existed and posted it on a tech forum.
And people went crazy for it.
The waitlist exploded overnight from a few thousand to over 70,000 people. They validated the demand empirically without building the product first.
And then look at Zappos. The founder, Nick Swinmurn, had an assumption. People will buy shoes online.
Which, in the early days of the internet, was a wild assumption.
Right. People wanted to try shoes on. Instead of renting a massive warehouse, raising millions and buying a huge inventory of shoes, which would be building the monument, he went to local shoe stores in his neighborhood.
Wait, she didn't even have shoes.
No, he literally just took pictures of their inventory and put those photos on a basic website.
He didn't even hold physical stock. That's insane.
None. When someone visited the site and bought a pair of shoes, he would drive back to the local store, buy the shoes at full retail price, box them up, and ship them himself.
So he was losing money.
He lost money on every single sale. But he wasn't trying to make money yet. He was just testing the assumption. Will a human being put their credit card into a website to buy shoes without trying them on first?
And the answer was yes.
The answer was yes. The assumption was validated.
That is just brilliant. The text also brings up Instagram. Originally, it was a totally different app called Bourbon, right?
Yeah, Bourbon. It was this incredibly complex, feature-heavy check-in app. You could earn points, make future plans with friends, post pictures.
But during this toddler phase of validation, they looked at the data and realized users were ignoring almost all of the features.
They didn't care about the check-ins.
The only thing people were actually using was the photo sharing utility. So they made the painful decision to strip everything else away. They killed their own darlings to isolate the one empirically verified utility.
And what about Buffer, the social media scheduling tool?
Oh yeah, what did they do?
The founder just put up a landing page that explained what the product would do with a button that said plans and pricing. If a user clicked that button, it took them to a page that essentially said, "We aren't quite ready yet. Give us your email if you're interested."
So they didn't build the software at all.
I didn't build a thing. They were
Yeah.
just measuring intent. Once enough people clicked on the paid tiers, they knew they had a real business.
These are all perfect real-world examples of what the masterclass connects to Eric Ries's lean startup framework, specifically the build, measure, learn feedback loop.
Right? You build a minimum viable product, an MVP.
In the case of Zappos, the MVP was literally just photos of shoes on a web page. Then you measure actionable metrics, not vanity numbers like page views, but actual intent, like clicking a pricing button or making a purchase.
And then you learn whether to pivot like Instagram did or persevere based entirely on that customer data.
It also integrates Steve Blank's customer discovery framework here, right?
It does. The core idea is articulating your hypotheses and testing them directly with target users outside the building. You cannot validate a business from behind a desk.
You know, reading through this section, a totally non-technical analogy came to mind. Tell me if this tracks with the framework.
Okay, let's hear it.
The validation phase is like sketching your dream house on a diner napkin. You're sitting there drinking coffee, and you draw this incredibly cool, ultra-modern house with all glass walls.
Sounds expensive.
Very. Skipping validation is like taking that napkin sketch, driving straight to an empty lot, and pouring a $2 million concrete foundation based on the sketch alone.
Without talking to anyone.
You haven't even asked the family who's going to live there if they want a kitchen. You just assume they'd love your glass box idea.
No.
Validation is taking the napkin home, showing it to the family, and hearing them say, actually, we hate modern architecture, we need privacy, and we absolutely need 3 bathrooms.
And then you just draw a new napkin.
Exactly. It costs you absolutely nothing to draw a new napkin, but it costs you everything to rip up a concrete foundation.
That is a phenomenal analogy, and it perfectly encapsulates the intent capital efficiency the Startup Planes Masterclass is advocating for. In Dr. Gupta's 100-step execution checklist, Phase 3 is literally titled Validation and Product Prototyping.
And what does it tell founders to do?
It explicitly commands founders.
Yeah.
Build a low-fidelity wireframe. Make a paper mock-up. Test those rough wireframes to gather immediate friction feedback from users. Define the absolute minimal feature set required to solve the core problem. The loudest warning is, do not overbuild.
Okay, so let's say our napkin sketch is approved. The family loves the new drawing. They are clamoring to move into the house. In startup terms, we have validated the demand. People want what we're selling. But here's the rub. Knowing people want something doesn't necessarily mean you can deliver it profitably. I mean, you can sell dollar bills for 90 cents all day long and have incredible demand, but you aren't running a business.
Exactly. And this is the great transition in the life cycle. You are graduating from toddlerhood into adolescence. In the masterclass framework, this is Phase 2, commercialization.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. The engine of profit.
Commercialization is the moment your idea has to get a real job. The text defines it as the process of transitioning an unmonetized concept, or a rough MVP, into a structured business model capable of consistent, repeatable cash flow.
It's no longer a science experiment.
Right, it's a math equation. It is entirely about establishing positive unit economics.
And this is where the rubber meets the road financially. The masterclass outlines 5 ruthless steps to commercialize a venture. And I don't just want to list them. I want to understand how they actually work. Step 1 is define the core revenue mechanism.
This means locking in exactly how value translates into dollars. Are you building a SaaS product, software as a service, where people pay a monthly subscription?
Or maybe a marketplace.
Right, a marketplace charging a transactional fee per use, like Uber.
Yeah.
Or you have an enterprise model where you rely on a high annual contract value, or ACV. You have to decide your pricing architecture because everything else flows from that.
It's like locking in the menu prices at a restaurant before you go buy the ingredients. Step 2.
Optimize customer acquisition cost, or CAC.
This is the heartbeat of your unit economics. You have to know exactly, down to the penny, how much it costs to acquire a paying user.
Because if it costs too much,
If you are spending $50 on Facebook ads or Google AdWords to acquire a customer, and that customer only generates $10 in lifetime revenue for you, you aren't running a business. You're running a charity for ad networks.
ouch.
You have to tweak the engine, your marketing, your targeting, your onboarding until that ratio flips and your acquisition cost is significantly lower than the value the customer brings in.
Which leads right into Step 3. Establish repeatable sales loops. This is crucial for graduating out of toddlerhood. It means building a predictable process where leads convert into paying customers consistently without founder heroics.
Founder heroics.
Remember, during validation, Nick Swinmurn at Zappos was driving to the store to buy shoes himself. That's founder heroics. It doesn't scale.
Oh, right.
In commercialization, you need a system, a sales funnel, automated marketing, a trained sales team that works whether the founder is in the room or not.
Without founder heroics. I love that. The business has to survive if the founder takes a sick day.
Step 4. Achieve gross margin viability.
You must mathematically verify that delivering your product or service costs significantly less than what the customer pays you after factoring in all the direct costs of delivery. If your gross margins are bleeding, as Dr. Gupta says, scale will destroy you.
And finally, Step 5. Secure initial reference customers. You need to build verifiable case studies and gather glowing testimonials from your initial cohort of users. This is about validating trust. It proves to the broader, more skeptical market that your solution actually works in the real world for real people.
Now, the text points out a major operational shift that has to happen here, and it's all about talent. During the validation phase, the text argues you shouldn't really have traditional employees. You just need agile co-founders who take equity, who can tolerate massive ambiguity, and who are, willing to pivot the whole company on a Tuesday.
Right, you need flexibility above all else.
But in commercialization, when you're building this engine of profit, the hiring strategy has to change completely.
Yes, the checklist breaks this talent transition down beautifully. When you enter commercialization, you need a very specific mix of what they call experienced senior leads and freshers.
Why that specific barbell strategy? Why not just hire a bunch of mid-level managers?
Because you need one or two highly seasoned professionals, say, a veteran lead engineer or a head of sales who has built a department from scratch before. They know what a functioning, profitable engine looks like.
I've seen it before.
Exactly. They set the foundational quality standards. They write the standard operating procedures. They are the architects. Then you supplement those architects with high-energy freshers, junior talent, recent graduates who can execute those procedures affordably.
So it keeps the cost down.
It keeps your cash burn rate manageable while you are still proving your profit engine works.
Okay.
If you hire all senior people, you burn through your cash too fast. If you hire all junior people, nobody knows how to build the systems.
That makes total sense. Let's bring in some more case studies from the text to see this commercialization phase in action, because making the math work is fascinating. Slack is a brilliant example here.
Slack's transition is incredible. A lot of people don't know this, but Slack actually started as an internal communication glitch within a video game company called Tiny Speck.
They were making a game.
They were building a game that was failing. But the internal chat tool they built to communicate with each other, that was amazing. That realization was their validation. The internal tool was more valuable than the game. But commercialization is where Slack became a monster.
Right, because how do you charge for chat? There are a million free chat apps.
Exactly. They evolved from a gaming glitch into a highly disciplined B2B business-to-business SaaS model. They introduced rigorous user tier pricing.
So they let teams use it for free.
They let teams use it for free. But the moment a corporate team needed to search their message history past a certain limit or needed more file storage, they had to move into paid enterprise contracts. Slack figured out exactly how to monetize the utility of memory and search.
And then there's Stripe, the payments platform. The text highlights Stripe's relentless focus on developer documentation during their commercialization phase, which on the surface sounds incredibly boring, right? API doc.
Very boring to most people.
So why was that their engine?
Because Stripe realized their true customer wasn't the CEO of the company. It was the developer integrating the payment gateway. By making their fee structures totally transparent and making their integration incredibly easy and elegant for developers, they locked in hyper-loyal processing volume.
The developers basically became their sales team.
Developers loved it so much they refused to use anything else. Stripe made their unit economics work at an incredible scale by ruthlessly reducing the friction of adoption.
Zoom is another great example here. They entered a market that was already crowded. Video conferencing was not a new idea. Skype existed, WebEx existed.
Right, it was a very mature market.
But during their commercialization phase, Zoom focused entirely on reliability and low-friction guest links. You didn't need to create an account or download heavy software to join a Zoom call. You just clicked a link.
And that low friction created intense virality. Every time a paying Zoom user invited a non-user to a meeting, it was a free demonstration of the product's superiority.
It's built-in marketing.
That virality converted massive amounts of free users into paid enterprise seats. Their core revenue mechanism, upgrading for meetings longer than 40 minutes or for more participants, was perfectly aligned with natural user behavior.
Okay, let me push back here. Or rather, let me play devil's advocate on behalf of a hyper-ambitious founder. Let's say I've got this great app. User numbers are exploding. It's totally free right now. What if I just want to give the product away for free for a few more years to build a massive Facebook-sized user base?
I hear this all the time.
Right. Why do I need to rush into commercialization? Why do I need to lock in pricing and stress over gross margins right now if venture capitalists are begging to give me cash just to fuel my user growth?
That mindset is the exact trap that destroyed countless startups over the last decade, especially during the zero interest rate era. The masterclass includes quotes from several venture capitalists, and one of them answers your question with brutal clarity.
What?
The quote is, "Valuation is opinion. Cash flow and unit economics are mathematical laws."
Ouch. Valuation is just an opinion.
It is. A VC can say your free app is worth $1 billion, But if you don't have a mechanism to generate cash, it's an illusion. Another VC quote in the text tackles this directly. It says, "Capital is like gasoline. Pouring it on a healthy engine creates rocket fuel. Pouring it on a broken engine creates an explosion."
Wow.
If you are giving your product away for free indefinitely with no clear path to monetization, or worse, if you are losing money on every single transaction but trying to make it up in volume, you have a fundamentally broken engine. You have negative unit economics.
And pouring VC money onto negative unit economics just means you explode faster. You just burn through more money, more spectacularly.
Precisely. Dr. Gupta is quoted in this section saying, "Commercialization is where a dream transforms into a machine. If your unit economics bleed, your scale will only accelerate your bankruptcy. You cannot fake momentum forever."
The market eventually catches up.
Eventually, the music stops, the easy venture capital dries up, and if your business cannot generate self-sustaining cash flow, it dies. The product market fit framework in the text specifically notes that the period before you achieve product market fit is characterized by high churn, founder-led sales heroics, and negative unit economics.
You have to get past that phase.
You have to cross that threshold.
Yeah.
Your customer acquisition costs relative to the lifetime value of that customer must become predictable and profitable.
Okay, so let's summarize the journey so far. We had the idea. We validated the demand the toddler learned to walk without burning the house down. Then we commercialized. The adolescent went to school, learned discipline, and built a profitable, repeatable engine.
The math works.
The unit economics are airtight. We put $1 into the marketing machine and $2 come out. The machine works. Now, and only now, according to the text, is it time to unleash the multiplier effect. We are entering phase 3, expansion.
Adulthood, the career peak. This is where you finally pour that rocket fuel.
Okay, so if commercialization is proving the math works in one specific instance, how does the text define the expansion phase?
Expansion is defined as pouring aggressive capital into a proven engine to multiply its footprint. You're taking what works and expanding it across new geographies, entirely new customer segments, or complementary product lines.
It's about replication.
It's about taking that machine that works perfectly in Chicago and duplicating it in London, Tokyo, and New York simultaneously.
But again, the text comes with a massive warning label here. The ultimate danger of this phase is premature scaling. Dr. Gupta says, premature scaling is corporate suicide. Do not pour rocket fuel on a bicycle tire.
It's a great visual. If you haven't removed your internal operational bottlenecks during commercialization, scaling will destroy you.
Like what kind of bottlenecks?
If your customer support ticketing system isn't automated, or if your distribution logistics still rely on manual data entry by your staff, multiplying your customer base by 100 will literally break your company overnight. Your servers will crash, your customers will revolt, and your staff will quit.
Let's look at how the absolute giants manage this. Airbnb is highlighted in the text for their expansion strategy, so they had validated that people would actually sleep on air mattresses in strangers' living rooms.
Which was a crazy validation in itself.
Totally. They commercialized by figuring out the exact percentage fee they could take from the booking to remain profitable. But their expansion, it was meticulous. They standardized host photography globally to build a universal trust loop.
Because trust was the barrier.
Right. They figured out the exact operational playbook for launching in a tough market like New York, and then they aggressively replicated that exact playbook in Paris, London, and Tokyo.
And Uber. The masterclass positions Uber as the quintessential example of localized expansion.
Wait, hold on. Let me push back on that because this seems like a massive contradiction in the source material. Uber is the gold standard for expansion here. Didn't Uber burn billions and billions of dollars subsidizing rides for years?
They burned an incredible amount of capital, yes.
Their unit economics were famously terrible for a long time. They were losing money on almost every ride to undercut taxes. Doesn't that completely contradict Dr. Gupta's rule about never pouring capital into a broken engine with bleeding margins?
It's a fantastic point, and it's one of the most debated aspects of modern tech history.
Huh.
But the text frames Uber's strategy not as a broken engine, but as a deliberate, localized blitz for market liquidity.
Okay, explain that.
Uber didn't just launch globally and hope for the best. They expanded city by city, using incredibly detailed operational playbooks. The subsidies losing money on rides weren't because the engine was fundamentally flawed. It was a calculated customer acquisition cost.
They were just paying for users.
They knew exactly how much capital it took to tip a specific city's market into liquidity, meaning there were enough drivers so wait times were under 3 minutes, and enough riders to keep drivers busy.
Ah, so they were buying the network effect.
Exactly. Once a city reached liquidity, the unit economics in that specific city flipped to profitable. So they would use VC money to blitz a new city, tip it into profitability, and then move to the next.
So they weren't bleeding everywhere all at once unproductively.
Right. They deployed that capital with military precision. It looked like bleeding from the outside, but internally they were strictly managing the lifetime value equations per city.
Okay, that makes sense. The engine worked, it just required a massive initial fuel injection to start turning. And the text also points to Amazon. They scaled from a niche online bookstore into a global infrastructure and logistics powerhouse via relentless capital reinvestment.
They proved the e-commerce engine with books.
Right, which are easy to ship and don't go bad. And once the logistics software and warehouses were perfected, they applied that exact same engine to CDs, electronics, and eventually every product category on Earth.
Now, the architecture of managing this kind of hyperscale is incredibly complex. The masterclass connects this expansion phase to Reid Hoffman's blitzscaling framework.
Reid Hoffman, the LinkedIn founder.
Yes. He outlines 5 distinct stages of scale based entirely on employee count. And what's fascinating is how the organization and the founder's psychology must radically change at each step.
Let's walk through those blitzscaling stages because I think a lot of founders break down here. It starts with the family phase, which is 1 to 9 employees.
Right. In the family phase, you're usually in the validation or early commercialization stage. The founder is intimately involved in every single decision. You know everyone's coffee order.
You're all in one small room.
Communication is instant. Your only focus here is survival and finding product market fit.
Then you grow into the tribe phase, which is 10 to 90 employees.
In the tribe, you can still fit the whole company in one room, but the founder can no longer do everything. The focus shifts to scaling culture and creating operational repeatability. You have to start trusting other people to execute the vision.
And this is where it gets hard. The village phase, 100 to 999 employees.
This is where traditional management models completely break. A founder physically cannot know everyone's name anymore. You don't know who was hired yesterday.
The culture has to sustain itself.
You have to stop managing individual contributors and start managing managers. You have to focus on organizational layers. If a founder tries to micromanage a village, the company stalls.
Next is the city phase, 1,000 to 9,999 employees.
Here, departmental specialization is critical. You have entire divisions, legal, HR, international expansion that operate almost as their own companies. The founder's job becomes pure resource allocation and high-level strategy.
And finally, the nation phase, 10,000 plus employees.
This requires global, multinational enterprise management. The company is now a massive organism.
It's mind-boggling to think about the mental flexibility a founder needs to go from running a scrappy family of 5 people in a garage, coding until 3 a.m., to acting as the head of a nation of 20,000 employees globally.
It's why so many founders get replaced at the later stages.
The text also breaks down the mythical valuation milestones that accompany this expansion. We've all heard the term unicorn, but this masterclass outlines a whole spectrum of these creatures.
Yes, starting from the earliest emerging tiers. You have the minicorn. This is a startup valued at over $1 million. They're usually just graduating from validation and starting to show early, repeatable revenue.
Then you have the soonicorn.
These are companies demonstrating massive traction, usually heavily funded, and mathematically positioned to reach a billion-dollar valuation soon.
And then the famous unicorn, a privately held startup valued at over $1 billion. The text notes that investor Aileen Lee actually coined that term back in 2013 because, at the time, a billion-dollar private tech company was supposed to be as rare as a mythical creature.
But of course, the expansion doesn't stop there anymore. The masterclass details the decacorn, valued at over $10 billion. These are mature, dominant market leaders, often household names.
Like Uber or Airbnb were before they went public?
Right. Then the hectocorn, sometimes called a centicorn, valued at over $100 billion. Think of companies like SpaceX or ByteDance. And finally, the absolute apex, the kilocorn or teracorn, valued at $1 trillion or more.
The mega cap tech giants. Apple, Microsoft, Amazon.
The text is careful to emphasize that these aren't just arbitrary numbers meant to stroke a founder's ego. They are reflections of absolute market dominance.
You know, thinking about this entire expansion phase, another analogy comes to mind. It's very similar to franchising a restaurant.
Okay, I like where this is going. How so?
If you open a single independent restaurant, that is your validation and commercialization. You figure out the menu, you optimize the cost of ingredients so your gross margins are good. You train the staff to greet customers the right way.
You perfect the model.
Right, but let's say that first kitchen is an absolute disaster behind the scenes. It's constantly catching fire. The head chef is always threatening to quit. The inventory is always rotting in the fridge because you can't predict demand.
It's a mess.
You would never in a million years say, let's open 50 more locations right now. You don't clone a burning kitchen. You perfect the single kitchen's operations. You write the manual, the exact standard operating procedures for how long to cook the fries. And then, only when it's perfect, you duplicate it 50 times.
That is a perfect way to look at it.
Expansion isn't about growing for the sake of growing. It's about franchising the perfect kitchen.
That is exactly what Dr. Gupta means when he says, capital without clarity is toxic waste. Raise funds when you have a proven engine, not when you are searching for a map.
Toxic waste. Wow.
Expansion capital from VCs is meant to franchise the perfect kitchen. It is not meant to put out the operational fires in your first one. If you use venture money to solve fundamental business flaws, you just create a bigger, more expensive fire.
Okay, so we have the roadmap. Validate the idea, commercialize the engine, expand the franchise. Knowing what these phases are conceptually is one thing. It makes perfect logical sense.
But doing it is another story.
Right. The masterclass doesn't let us off the hook that easily. It dives incredibly deep into the human element of this equation. How does a founder actually survive the physical, emotional, and mental toll of this journey? Because the math they present in this final section is, frankly, terrifying.
It is a severe reality check. We are moving into theme 5, ecosystems, execution, and the founder's burden. The text outlines a concept they call the 10,000-hour horizon, but when you look at the breakdown, it's actually much more grueling than that.
Yeah, I want to address you, the listener, directly here for a second. If you are listening to this and you're thinking about starting a venture-scale enterprise, the mathematical reality presented in this text is that it takes 7 to 10 years of relentless compounding efforts.
It's a decade of your life.
Assuming 60 to 90-hour work weeks, which the text states is standard operating procedure for surviving the first 3 phases, you're looking at roughly 25,000 hours of high-intensity, high-stakes professional effort just to build an enduring company.
25,000 hours. And the masterclass makes a critical, life-saving distinction here. Working grueling hours is entirely meaningless if the time is misallocated. You have to protect what Dr. Gupta calls your decision capital.
Decision capital. Explain how that works mechanically.
It's the recognition that founders suffer from extreme decision fatigue. Your brain only has so much high-quality analytical power per day. The framework differentiates aggressively between high-leverage hours and low-leverage hours.
So what's a high-leverage hour?
High-leverage hours are actions that create compounding enterprise value. It's sitting down and talking directly to customers. It's refining the core product architecture. It's closing massive enterprise deals or recruiting elite department heads to run your village.
Things that actually move the needle and increase the company's valuation.
Exactly. Low-leverage hours, on the other hand, are insidious distractions. It's chasing vanity metrics on social media. It's sitting in endless internal status meetings that have no actionable outcomes.
The stuff that feels like work but isn't.
Right. It's getting bogged down by administrative tasks like payroll or formatting spreadsheets that should be automated or delegated immediately. If a founder burns their 90 hours a week on low-leverage tasks, they will fail despite working incredibly hard. They are back on the treadmill we talked about at the beginning, sweating but not moving.
And to survive those 25,000 hours without losing your mind, the text insists you shouldn't do it alone. It outlines the optimal co-founder triad, the specific archetypes of people required to survive the journey.
Selecting a co-founder is presented here as the single most important structural decision an entrepreneur will ever make. It's more important than the product idea itself.
Really? More important than the idea?
Oh, absolutely. You need non-overlapping skill sets.
Yeah.
If you have 2 visionary marketing guys who can't code, you're dead. The text identifies 3 core pillars of a perfect founding team. First is the builder.
The builder. So this is the technical co-founder.
Usually the CTO. They own the product architecture and the engineering. They can build the initial MVP without having to rely on slow, expensive, outsourced dev agencies.
Then you have the rainmaker.
The commercial or sales co-founder, the CEO type. They own the go-to-market strategy. They drive customer acquisition, they pitch to investors, and they generate revenue. They are the charismatic external face of the company's growth.
And finally, the operator.
The product or operational co-founder, often the COO. They own the internal user experience, project execution, day-to-day logistics, and supply chain.
So they keep everyone grounded.
Exactly. They're the essential bridge between what the builder is capable of making and what the rainmaker discovers the market actually wants. They keep the trains running on time.
Now, the text also zooms out from the internal team to look at how global geography impacts this entire life cycle, because assembling this triad and executing this 25,000-hour journey looks very, very different depending on where you physically live.
Oh, geography plays a massive role.
It contrasts the ecosystem of Silicon Valley with Europe and emerging markets.
The geographic disparities in startup ecosystems are massive, and they dictate your strategy. In Silicon Valley and North America generally, you have these incredibly deep-pocketed venture capital pools and immense institutional risk tolerance.
Investors there expect you to take huge swings.
Right. They expect founders to deploy high-burn, hyper-growth models. The goal is to capture massive market share as quickly as humanly possible, even if it means losing money for a decade.
The classic move fast and break things mentality.
Exactly. But look at Europe. The masterclass notes that the European ecosystem is traditionally much more conservative. There is a heavier reliance on government grants and smaller, more cautious angel syndicates.
So they can't just burn cash forever.
Because capital isn't as limitless, European startups often prioritize sustainable unit economics and actual profitability much earlier in their life cycle compared to their American counterparts.
And then you have emerging markets places like India, Southeast Asia, Latin America, and Africa. The text says that capital in these regions is fiercely disciplined and increasingly focused on digitizing the real economy.
Like local businesses.
Right. Things like SMEs, meaning small and medium enterprises, agri-tech, and manufacturing logistics.
Which is exactly where organizations like Startup Planes become critical infrastructure. The source material details how Startup Planes operates as this massive global business ecosystem and angel network designed specifically to bridge these geographic gaps.
The numbers provided in the text for Startup Planes are staggering. It says they operate actively across 56 cities in 15 different countries, and they've successfully facilitated over $111 million in total capital deployment across 136 high-growth startups.
It's a prime example of democratizing the startup landscape. Dr. Gupta's vision, as quoted heavily in the text, is to build cross-border infrastructure so that brilliance from any corner of the earth can reach an IPO.
Because talent is everywhere, but opportunity isn't.
Think about it. If you are a brilliant founder living in a Tier 2 or Tier 3 city anywhere in the world, you might have access to incredible local tech talent, but you likely lack access to specialized strategic mentorship, proven go-to-market playbooks, and most importantly, global distribution channels.
You just don't have the network.
Ecosystems like Startup Planes provide that cross-border infrastructure, reducing the friction of scaling and connecting founders to global capital, regardless of their physical zip code.
Okay, I have to ask one final difficult question. We've gone through these incredible, intricate frameworks. We've talked about Eric Ries's Lean Startup, Steve Blank's Customer Discovery, Reid Hoffman's Blitz Scaling, and Dr. Shishir Gupta's Biological Life Cycle.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We've laid out the 100-step execution checklists, the ruthless unit economic requirements, the 25,000 hours of grueling labor, the need for the perfect co-founder triad with all this immense complexity. Isn't failure almost statistically guaranteed for the average person?
It's definitely an uphill battle.
It just feels like there are 10,000 distinct ways to die and only one incredibly narrow path to success.
It is a gauntlet, without a doubt. The failure rates are high for a reason. But the masterclass counters that existential dread with its core philosophical tenet, which comes directly from Dr. Gupta. And it's a powerful shift in mindset.
What's the shift?
He says, a startup only fails when the founder decides to surrender.
Only when they surrender, not when they run out of money.
Even running out of money is just a problem to be solved. The masterclass spends a significant portion of its conclusion discussing the deep psychological resilience required to survive. It emphasizes the vital, non-negotiable importance of maintaining what psychologists call an internal locus of control.
Meaning you inherently believe you are in control of your own outcomes rather than being a victim of external circumstances.
Exactly. When a macroeconomic downturn hits, or a massive tech giant launches a direct clone of your product, or a lead investor suddenly pulls out of a term sheet at the last minute, a founder with an internal locus of control doesn't view it as a fatal blow or a sign from the universe to quit.
They just see it as a variable.
Dr. Gupta instructs founders to treat every obstacle as a temporary engineering variable It's just a new constraint in the mathematical equation of your business. You iterate, you adjust the variables, you pivot the product, and you keep moving. The market ultimately rewards execution and persistence above all else.
So what does this all mean for you? If you are listening to this right now, whether you are just tinkering with a napkin sketch on nights and weekends, or you are a Series A CEO trying to scale a growing company, the mandate from this masterclass is loud and clear. Master the life cycle. Respect the sequence.
Validate ruthlessly to prove demand before you build the monument. Commercialize meticulously to prove profit before you hit the gas pedal. And expand to dominate the market only when your unit economics are absolutely airtight.
The text provides so many incredible insights, but there is a quote from Biz Stone, the co-founder of Twitter, that really sums up the 25,000-hour timeline we discussed. He says, timing, perseverance, and 10 years of trying will eventually make you look like an overnight success. Execution is everything.
Ideas are a commodity. Everyone has ideas. The relentless execution of those ideas across this biological rhythm is the only thing that creates lasting, generational enterprise value.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave everyone with a final provocative thought that came to me while synthesizing all these sources. We spent a lot of time today on Dr. Gupta's brilliant analogy comparing corporate growth to the human biological life cycle from infancy and toddlerhood all the way up through adulthood and elderhood.
Right.
But humans inevitably pass away. We hit our elder years. We hopefully leave a meaningful legacy, and we make room for the next generation. That is the fundamental law of biology.
Everything has an end date.
But the text compares the ultimate final stage of a startup, the hectacorn or kilocorn stage, companies with hundreds of billions in valuation and tens of thousands of global employees to that human elderhood.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
Here's the catch. A hectacorn doesn't die of old age. It is, for all intents and purposes, legally immortal. If an enterprise outlives its original founders, crosses sovereign borders, and scales to become a permanent, globally integrated institution, does it eventually stop being a business at all?
It certainly acts like more than a business.
Does a kilocorn become something closer to a digital nation state?
That is a profound extrapolation. When a company dictates global communication or global commerce, it does start to look like a sovereign entity.
And if it does become a digital nation state, what happens to that original founder's internal locus of control when the machine they built becomes too massive, too complex for any one human being to ever steer again?
It outgrows them completely.
You start this 25,000-hour journey by frantically trying to control every single variable just to survive the toddlerhood phase. But if you succeed perfectly, if you execute every phase flawlessly, you ultimately create a leviathan that controls itself. Just something to think about the next time you open an app on your phone that started not too long ago as a simple sketch on a diner napkin.
A powerful and honestly slightly terrifying thought to end on.
Let's make sure we are actually moving forward today, not just sweating on the treadmill. Master the sequence, build the orchard. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.